So, welcome to the 5th edition of the ACSIS Exchange Webinar Series, a powerful space for visionaries, innovators, and change makers to engage in timely solutions-focused dialogue on building sustainable futures across Africa and the Caribbean. This session spotlights one of the most dynamic yet under-delivered sectors driving identity, innovation, and inclusive growth, the creative and cultural industries, otherwise known as CCI. In an era where digital transformation, cultural diplomacy, and creative economics are reshaping global influence and economic development, how can Africa and the Caribbean collaborate to protect, invest in, and scale their cultural capital? From fashion to film, music to media, visual arts to storytelling, our regions hold immense soft power, rich heritage, and untapped economic potential. Yet challenges persist: fragmented ecosystems, limited financing, policy gaps, and global inequities in distribution and representation. This conversation brings together artists, entrepreneurs, cultural leaders, and policymakers to explore how do we decolonize creative economies, what policies and partnerships are needed to empower cultural entrepreneurs and communities, and how can the creative sector drive sustainable development, youth employment, and regional cohesion. As the world wakes up to the value of culture, let us seize this moment to redefine creative sovereignty, elevate diasporic narratives, and turn cultural expression into energies of prosperity and pride. This is more than a webinar, ladies and gentlemen. It's a cultural call to action. Join us. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm David Roberts. I'm an entrepreneur, publisher, and event convener noted for creating the blog caribdirect.com, Caribbean Food and Drink Conference, and the founder of the African Caribbean Sustainability and Investment Summit. With us, we have Dr. Uche Igwe, who's a political economy analyst and one of our presenters. And he's a visiting fellow both at the Firoz Lalji Institute for Africa at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and the International Center for Policing and Security at the University of South Wales. Madison Tavares is our producer, dedicated to amplifying authentic Caribbean stories. Her storytelling expertise will help elevate ACSIS's global impact and foster greater inclusion in its narratives. Our lead researcher is Atinuke Akintolu, senior campaign manager with 10 years plus experience delivering global brand campaigns, driving audience engagement, and leading purpose-driven marketing strategies across sectors including finance, jewelry, and regulatory communications. So, the people of focus today, I've got Nadine Hagen. Nadine champions women's leadership and African entrepreneurship, founding Hope and Female Leadership, and the Nadine Hagen Agency and GRAD, uniting African artisans and the diaspora through enterprise and culture. We also have the infamous Michael Burgess, who is a senior cultural strategist and founder of Creative Resilience International, and who leads a high-impact Africa-focused event, mentoring programs and global partnerships, advancing Black creatives and sustainable development. Now, in terms of how we'll conduct this seminar while we wait on everyone else to join, if there are questions to be asked, please raise your hands or you can put them in the chat. So I think we should get started with no further ado. So let me just get my slides up so that we can move straight into Michael. We'll have to start with you today. So I hope you're prepared. Hope everything is set for you. Come on, system. Right, here we go. So we saw that. Where's Michael? Here's Michael. So Michael, tell us what's happening at your neck of the woods.
It just so happens, guys, that I'm speaking to you live from Nairobi, Kenya. Um, uh, I I'm here to do some work with the British Council on the Cultural Heritage Symposium, which is part of a larger uh, 7 months program of activities that's part of the UK Kenya season. And the Cultural Heritage Symposium happening here is also going to be followed up by a symposium happening in London in September, and also one in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm moderating one of the panel discussions tomorrow, and therefore I have to be here and also supporting on engagement with various different strategic partners, including Kenya Tourism Board and HEVA Fund, which is a major funding body here that supports the creative industry. So that's why I'm here in Nairobi, and I'm actually joining you not just from Nairobi, but specifically from uh, um, an organization called Beams. It's a multimedia training center that is under the Don Bosco Youth Services, and I sponsor my company, Creative Resilience International, sponsors some of these students to attend these courses free of charge, taking care of tuition and food. And so they recently had their graduation. And of course, if I'm in Nairobi, I had to make a point to come and congratulate them on graduating. The graduation was in June, and I brought a little bit of some little presents for them also. And it's just been incredible. And these are young men and women who come from very marginalized and low income backgrounds. So it's been incredible to be with them and be encouraged by their passion and determination, and just their zest for for life and for just wanting better.
Fantastic. Wonderful. I hope you have a great time out there, and I know you're going to make a difference to people's lives. Yes? So,
Oh, thank you.
all right. So we're going to start with you. Let me just pull your slides up. So this is your first slide. So take it away, Michael.
Thank you, thank you. So with all that fantastic intro that you did, David, and understanding the significance of the culture, the cultural industry and the impact it has on just on in creativity in itself. It informs everything that has to do with the creative industry. But beyond that, what I wanted to also show with this presentation is the value that it brings. And when I talk about how it underpins and inspires innovation and sustainability in the creative industry, is looking at why. Why is that? And in order to understand that, we're looking at the financial value, but also beyond the financial value, understanding the other elements, the other intangible elements that are there that brings a lot of value to what we do and who and how we exist, and why we should be so committed to ensuring that there is a, a continuation and relentless continuation to always ensure that that the cultural conversation is at the forefront of what we do as people of color, and understanding that there is no neglect in how we appreciate culture, and ensure that that we don't get caught up in just the commercial and the monetization of of our creativity. So this is what this presentation is all about. On the front of that, on the first image that we see is of Chief Nike Okonde, who is the an incredible multimedia artist, and she is considered one of the most powerful female artists in Africa that champions um, modern and contemporary African artists. She's the only gallerist in Africa that independently has four galleries that she created that is all about encouraging modern art, but also the Afrofuturism, just cultivating artists who understand their deep sense of purpose. And it's not just about just creating art, but telling all stories. And in addition to that, Chief Nike Kondia is also Chief Nike Kondia Davis is she started off as a textile designer, and this is a tradition and that was passed down from generations and generations. And so she started off with that, specifically with Adire. She has a center for Adire Productions, and so she started off with that and has continued to do some incredible things. She's used her art to also champion amazing causes, like, for example, the Bring Back All Girls campaign for those young girls who were abducted in the northern parts of Nigeria. And so she was a driving force in bringing that sort of social consciousness to her work. So, and she happens to be my godmother, who I absolutely love. And so, as I said,
Amazing.
yeah. So again, with regards to looking at culture, she's a perfect example of understanding how culture has really shaped her trajectory as an artist, but also as as an activist. And on there, there's some you'll see in the first slide. What I also bring to that are some financial values that you see there. One that specifically relates to cultural tourism, and which is oftentimes in order for people to get to really regard culture and creativity, people have to think about what is the business, what's the business argument, how much money does it bring? And unfortunately, that's where the world is. But this is also one of the motivations for ensuring that we get the sort of support to understand that culture is a driving force in all that we do in our creative ambitions. So we can go to the next slide. First and foremost, what is culture? Because I think that's the first thing to really understand. When we're looking at culture and cultural capital, what are we really talking about? Well, first of all, when you think about capital, you're trying to think about how do we monetize culture. But in order to do that, we have to first understand culture. Here we're looking at culture being a representing a group of people that have been informed, that have been shaped, that have been influenced by shared beliefs, shared customs, shared language, shared symbols, etc. And so it's in all of those nuances of culture, we understand from all of those little elements there, we're able to then capitalize on those elements. So whether it is being something that's actually physical, like for example, whether it being in fashion, whether it being artifacts, or whether it's being something that's much more focused on our beliefs. That's a totally different thing. And so, but all of that is incorporated into culture. So culture is way more nuanced than, say, traditions, which traditions falls under culture, or customs, which falls under culture. It's important to understand also that the non-physical assets of culture, which has in the last few years, when one talks about sustainability, for example, sustainability, oftentimes when people refer to sustainability, they're referring, the first thing that one thinks about is the climate. But the other thing that one must also think about when referring to sustainability, and that is heritage preservation, which falls under the umbrella of culture too. And those things are hugely important. Later on in another slide, you'll see that there is a quote that I shared in this presentation from one of my colleagues at the British Council. And she said that, and here we're referring to music as one of those elements. And she said that music is not a language, but it is a language because it's something that we can all understand and we all feel. And when she shared that, I just thought, oh my gosh, how powerful is that? And will definitely everyone can understand that for sure. And then we go into going further down and understanding the uniqueness. Again, going back to how culture is what is the foundation, is what informs our creativity. And that being aware of our culture helps us to stand out from any other, even if it's a similar person from the same culture. but there's an interpretation of that, of what we create, that makes us unique, and that's very important. And then, of course, we talk about the currency. This is literally when one figure understands what competitive edge is, you're able to understand the currency, the value, the physical value, the monetary value, the economic value that is associated with culture, which is quite vast. And so the next slide, we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking specifically on, there's a video I have here, in all my presentation, I never just want to show text. I definitely want to give a bit more context to what it is that so that the audience can have a better understanding. So the next, we'll play this video because I think it's very important, and we're going to understand how culture has really helped us to engage with a wider audience that has been instrumental in helping us to be able to capitalize on culture. So if we can play that video, that would be wonderful. I hope it plays.
Okay. Let me see.
If you clicked on the image just now, I think it should play, David.
Okay. All right.
And can you hear me clearly also?
I can hear you. I can hear you. There's no video here.
I think once it was saved, I think you probably saved it as a PDF, and so so let me offer a bit of context where our culture is celebrated. Our culture is celebrated and appreciated not just by ourselves, but also by people who are other people outside of our communities. Here, the gentleman here this video is recapping his experience at a carnival in Brazil. And here you have all different kinds of people. And most of the people that you see here in this video are people who are visitors to Brazil, who came specifically for the carnival. We do know that the carnival is not just another celebration, right? For people to just another rave, I should say. It's not just another rave. It literally reflects our culture that is deeply rooted in our African heritage. And so the music, the costumes, the food, the experience, the engagement, the cross-cultural experience is all about celebrating our culture. This experience also brings millions and millions of dollars, US dollars, to Brazil's economy and to the local businesses also. And that stems from whether it being in accommodation, whether it being in terms of hospitality, transportation, etc., the fashion designers, the costume designers. It is an incredible experience. And so again, it's a perfect example to understand how our culture goes beyond providing the economic value, but also help us to engage with people outside of our experiences, who then get to appreciate that and is informed and by who we are, our identity, etc. So if we can go to the next slide, where I'll break it down a bit more on the economic value that it brings to the various different carnivals. So we're going to focus specifically on three of the largest carnivals in the world. Here we are talking about Brazil, where there are over 800,000 tourists who come to Brazil every year to celebrate and enjoy carnival. In terms of the monetary value, it generates over $2.8 billion. That is a lot of money. Note that Brazil, again, when you think of the situation, the position of Brazil as far as whether being in the developing South or developing North, Brazil is a developing country, and therefore these this contribution to the economy being from the creative sector, from the cultural sector, means a whole lot, and therefore there are a lot more people as far as mobilizing of entrepreneurs and emerging talent, and even seasoned business owners who focus specifically and capitalize specifically on carnival, get to be involved and benefit from that, and therefore contribute to the economy, contribute to their lives, and contribute to their communities. another very important carnival, which is very dear to me, and to many of us in the audience, is the Notting Hill Carnival in London, which generates over £396 million. This is incredible. And unlike Brazil, where the spaces are, where the carnival covers much bigger spaces, interesting enough, in Notting Hill, it literally covers most of Notting Hill area, in Kilburn, Ladbroke Grove, Kensal Rise, and Kensal Rise area, which seems big, but when compared to the other carnivals in the other countries, it's actually quite compact. And as compact as it is really an amazing opportunity, an amazing time for people to come together from all different walks of life, and also what it brings to the UK, but specifically the UK economy, specifically to the London economy. But no, there is something I do want to point out here, which I will elaborate on a little later on, as far as the funding, and specifically when it comes to the London Notting Hill Carnival, where even though so much money to the London economy and to the UK economy. Every year, the Notting Hill Carnival is still under threat of being disbanded because of lack of funding, which is quite extraordinary, isn't it? You would think that that's quite contradictory, knowing that it brings so much money in. In fact, it was only I think it was a couple of weeks ago, less than a couple of weeks ago, where there was an injection of funding from a private source that is allowing Notting Hill Carnival to happen this year. The next carnival that is very popular, big, everyone comes from around the world to enjoy this carnival, is the Trinidad and Tobago Carnival that generates annually $147 million and adds 46% of contribution to Trinidad's GDP, which is incredible. I believe, it might be even way more than that. But as far as
Michael, sorry,
yes,
you're fading.
for the references and where for these figures, I'll be happy to share that too. And next, another element in the creative industry that is very much informed, that influenced by culture, is the music industry. And we're talking about, again, specifically for the music industry, both in Africa and the Caribbean. It is incredible because all of some of the biggest artists. If you can go to the next slide, David, I will be able to pull up some of those artists.
Michael, your audio seems to be fading.
Oh, can you not hear? Can you hear me?
You can hear me?
Can you hear me now?
It's still faint.
Hello? Okay, Laura said that she can hear me, which is great.
All
Thank you, Laura,
right.
for confirming.
It's a little better.
Okay, great. So when it comes to the music industry, there again, which is very much, whether you're talking about dance hall or you're talking about Afro beats or you're talking about Latin music or Amapiano in South Africa, there's some of the legends, whether it being new legends like the Tara or the legends of dance hall like Spice and Vibes Cartel, or the Afro beats artists such as Burna Boy, or the legendary artists such as Angelique Kidjo, or the huge Latin artists like Ricky Martin. Every single bit of their creativity is informed by their deep sense of pride for their culture. And because of that, we know that the music industry generates a whole lot of money just because of these artists who remain authentic to their existence and to their being and taking pride in their culture. In Africa alone, the live music in Africa generates over 200 million. Now, we're talking about Africa as the entire continent. Now, when you go specifically to these different countries, the actual figure is way more than that, way more. But we're looking at Africa as a whole, and it's expected that that figure is expected to double in 2030. The music streaming, so that is live music. Now, when it comes to live music streaming, and we're focusing on the technological contribution in making music much more accessible, and therefore for these music artists and record labels to have a wider audience, you can see that live music streaming, the traditional music, live music is one element, but streaming is where it's at. And that has generated over $314.6 million in Africa. And that's just, again, that's just for Africa. In the Caribbean, remember, we're referring to all of those countries, the music industry, all of those countries in the Caribbean. It a small figure, it seems, which is only 52.63 million dollars. But I'm sure you guys are aware that when you think about the music saying coming from with and the specifically different genres also, that figure is far greater than that. If we can move on to the next slide, David, thank you. Fashion, book market, in terms of the literature market, art. This is all of this again is very much influenced by culture. And as I said earlier in the very beginning of my presentation, the reason why we're focusing on the economic value of culture is so that we can understand how important it is to take great pride in our culture and never compromise our culture, and understand that culture, being true to our culture, to our identity, to our heritage, and understanding how we incorporate the various different elements of culture in who we are, in our creativity, allows us to be part of this industry that generates so much money, and therefore getting further support from the infrastructure that should be there to safeguard, protect, and continue to invest in. Fashion industry in Africa generates 31 billion 31 billion US dollars, which is incredible. That's a lot. That is a lot of money there. And so when we think of why we should need to, again, how, of course, when you think of Africa and the amount of people that's in Africa, in Nigeria alone, there are over 300 million people. So we're talking about creativity. The creativity is one of those industries that is considered one of the most sustainable industries, and therefore, when it comes to entrepreneurship and the presence of that in the creative industry, there are many people who want to be fashion designers and want to write books or be artists, or music artists, etc. But there is room there for everybody. There's absolutely room, and that means that everyone can get a piece of this pie that's here. Of course, there's added support that is needed to make that happen, but we do know that to know that this figure exists is inspiration itself to say, you know what, I like to be part of that. Again, the literature market in terms of in Africa, when you think of, I'm sure for some of you are probably shocked by this figure that it generates over $2 billion in Africa. That's incredible. And again, when you think of the population, the entire population of Africa in comparison to the Caribbean, you could just imagine that the figures in the Caribbean will be far less than this. But again, some of the greatest literary figures are from both Africa and the Caribbean. And while this figure does not minimize their contribution at all, and their championing of culture and heritage preservation, there's still an understanding that we should be aware of the economic value that it brings. Art in itself, 1.5 billion to the economy, and there's so much more. And again, we're talking about Africa as an entire continent, but when you go more specific to different countries, these figures will change. Next slide, please. So of course I had to share a bit when it comes to the fashion, because one of the many ways that we're able to identify, celebrate, and represent our culture is through fashion. And these are some of the biggest and most celebrated fashion designers on the continent. And we have in the upper left corner with the beautiful accessories, which is with an incredible Afrobeat artist. who's just his name has slipped my mind. I can't believe I forgot her name. Who's a phenomenal artist, but the actual designer is Epical Jewelry. In the middle, we have Iman Ayisi, who is from Senegalese, and much more seasoned designers. So what you see here with the different designers, they're at different levels in their careers, but all very respected and established. And you can see some of them are captured. Some of the people who are wearing their clothes are captured at different functions. On the right of Imanayisi is in the red, by the way. And the right of Imanayisi is one of the fashion icons in Africa, and that is Al Fadi. Again, when you look at the clothes and you can clearly see how much their culture and their heritage has influenced their designs. At the bottom left corner is an incredible oh, thank you very much. Iman is from Cameroon. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for correcting me on that. Yes. So in the bottom left corner is everyone knows this designer is Oswald Boateng, who is a Ghanaian British designer, and wearing another very famous Afrobeats artist is wearing his dress. And this outfit, she was wearing this at the recent the recent Met Gala that was all about dandyism. And of course, when we want things about dandyism, again, that is very much, while there's an element of protest that's involved in that, is very much also underpinned by our culture. And so that's very important to recognize that too. And often, even in that conversation around dandyism and styling, etc., there wasn't a lot of conversation around culture in that, which was, I thought, as an important element that was missing in the fantastic exhibition that's at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, in Manhattan. And to the right of Oswald Boateng is Tebe Magugu, who's a South African designer. And this beautiful young lady is also at the Met Gala this year. So that's at this year. But again, the contributions that they have made, that Black and Black, but more specifically, because Black is as a social construct, we're speaking about designers of African heritage and their contribution to the global fashion industry, and how they represent their culture, they represent their country, they represent their continent, and how they represent us as a people is phenomenal. If we can move to the next slide, please.
Fine. I believe we should be pretty much wrapping your session up now.
Okay.
Michael,
Thank you.
you've
Thank you so
done
much.
quite a lot.
Thank
Done
you. Well,
quite a lot.
the presentation, if anyone liked the presentation, I'm happy to share that. If you guys are happy to do that too, David. So the next slide, well, to kind of wrap both of them to the next couple of slides, I just wanted to look also at the impact of culture and recognizing the tremendous value, the asset and the capital that is literally in our laps, if it's really packaged really well, and that the sort of the benefits, both the socioeconomic mobility that it brings to our lives. And so there's a list that's there. And also in this presentation, I also wanted to touch on the threats to culture and the access to culture. And that's mainly through technology, and whether it be the sort of level of plagiarisms and appropriation that takes place with AI, and people who are not even from our culture who are taking advantage, and those who from even within our culture and beyond, who are also ripping off people's fantastic designs, etc., through AI. I know YouTube recently um, um, uh, decided to change their policy in how they in ensuring that any channels that did not have a physical face, that from a physical person, was completely taken down. And so that's very important. But also there's a protection that there's a threat even from our own governments who don't protect us, and ensure that there are measures in place to both fund, but also policies and laws in place to protect and ensure that they can give the sort of leverage that is needed for creatives who use culture to to further their ambitions. And that concludes my presentation.
Fantastic. Well presented. Some really startling statistics and information about culture across Africa and the Caribbean. One of the things I noted that you had not mentioned, which is a huge and growing industry in Africa in particular, well, more than likely in Nigeria in particular, is Nollywood. You know, that is a multi-billion dollar industry at the moment that is extremely globally impacting. So thank you for that, Michael. I think what we'll do now is we'll run into a question and answer session for about 10 minutes. And after that, then we'll come back to Nadine Hagen, who is waiting patiently in the waiting room. So questions from the audience. While we wait, I will just ask one question to get things moving. So Michael, we see that Africa has tremendous talent. We have no doubt about the talent that exists across the continent. How does the whole idea of the brain drain affect Africa's talent? Do you find that there are many young Africans with talents looking elsewhere rather than developing their skills and talent locally?
Do you know, that's a very good question, David. And the reality is that is very much the case indeed. But as though that figure, when oftentimes, that reality is spotlighted in the media. And yes, there's certainly a level of brain drain that's taken place there, but there are many reasons for that too. But I will say also that many of the incredible talent stays in Africa. Africa, though, is one of the oldest continents in the world. It is also the youngest continent in the world because over 70% of Africa's population is under the age of 30. And so when you think of some of the most technological advancement that's taken place, whether it being in AI or any audio visual or, and this, it has happened in Africa. And the big multinationals are out there, whether it being Apple or whether it be Microsoft, etc., tap into the source in Africa. And so there is an entire conversation around that. And I do know at the highest level, at the African Union, for example, where the heads of states come and they discuss these things, that is one of those factors that they're trying to put in place also. And there's individual countries are trying to, and some countries are better than others in doing that too. But there is certainly that concern indeed. But there's also a stronger push to engage with the diaspora. Do you know what I mean? And that means to attract some of those who have left Africa or left the Caribbean in this case, but as we're talking about Africa, to return to Africa and do greater things. And many of them do. Some of the biggest music artists, for example, especially those who are, I'll speak for one of those examples, Tiwa Savage. Tiwa Savage, Savage, who is from Nigeria, a British Nigerian artist, first appeared on one of those music talent shows in London, and it didn't really go far. But Tiwa is one of the biggest Afrobeats artists right now. She's appeared and collaborated with the likes of Beyonce. So she's incredible. So yes, there is a actual push to get those talents back into Africa. In fact, the Africa Union also decided to really formulate an entire concept and an element around recognizing the importance and significance of the diaspora by coming up with a concept called the sixth region of Africa, and that's looking at the diasporic value to Africa, and that's not just those people coming from Africa who's gone out, but also reflecting the diaspora being people of African heritage, even in the Caribbean and anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic response. Thank you for that. Any other questions before we move to Nadine?
Laura has a question.
Laura, the floor is yours.
She's dropped it in the chat. Her question is, I have one. While there is a wealth of creativity and money flowing through the creative industries, how can we prevent European institutions exploiting and extracting of creative wealth?
Oh boy.
Very good question. That's a
Oh
very
boy.
good question, Laura. Uh, a big part of that, and this is a question that has to be approached from various different angles. And one of that is very much understanding the the various different ways that this exploitation takes place, but also who can help us to protect this wealth of creativity. One being in terms of our governments and making sure that their policies in place that both not just protect in terms of our IPs, but also protects and but also encourage, empowers, and through investment. Do you know what I mean? That's very important, and recognizing the creative industry as a vital industry in the GDP, in the overall economy. That's very important. I do also think that when it comes to contracts, that their contracts, whether it being that a contracts that where we have these there and contracts that's not by your friend who can review it, or someone who studied law and but is no longer practicing law, but that their bodies there, and that and bodies, I mean by platforms and experts there who can help in ensuring that those contracts are signed properly, that people are then also, these creatives are also informed on entertainment law, etc. I think that's very important, and I think there's a role to play also in independent platforms. I know Laura Samuels. Laura, you have done amazing things. I know you personally. You are known for Rapport Film Festival, which is an independent film festival that champions filmmakers from across the Africa diaspora, and she's been doing this for many years. But in addition to that, she's been doing. She has open mic nights. She does all this work around creativity, the creative industry, right there in London. And her work is very much focused on championing Black creators. That's very, very important. And so that's what I would say to that. There's a role to play in terms of the independent platforms in continuing to spotlight. There's a role to play in ensuring that the right expertise is there. My absolute pleasure. It's an honor. And I honestly, Laura, you've been doing amazing things. It's only right to give you this, to give you your flowers. There's a role to play in make sure that creators are properly informed, but and there's a role to play by the governments too.
Great, fantastic. Thank you for that response, Michael. You're quite right. We need all these systems in place, IP, and all of that stuff. Whether we're looking at protecting people's creations through copyright or patenting, whatever it is, but we certainly do need that in place. So now we move to the next speaker, who is none other than Ms. Nadine Hagen. Nadine, welcome. And
David, before you bring
yes,
the next speaker, could I add one more thing, please?
We're running out of time, but make it quick.
Oftentimes,
30 seconds.
Yes, oftentimes, but we should also recognize that Africa and the Caribbean are also credible markets. Credible markets. The figures that I just showed just now is literally for Africa and the Caribbean. So creators can tap into, now understand that it's not just Europe and America that is a market. We have the volume also in Africa and the Caribbean. That's all I like to say.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. So Nadine Hagen.
Originally, I should not start by saying my name is Nadine Hagen. I should start by telling you why I'm here today. I am here because I've done things to bring me here. I'm here because I have something to say about Africa and obviously the diaspora. I'm here because I think I have something to share about my heritage as a Black African woman, but also as a community development woman or practitioner, and also as a woman who works within a system that educates men, women, and children. Today, I have the privilege to talk to you about my background. I have the privilege to tell you about why today I do the things I do. I grew up around my great-grandmother, my mother, obviously my grandmother too. I had a dad. So I know Africa. I left Africa, I was 22 years old. So I've lived half in Africa and half in London. I want to share with you what I discovered. I discovered female leadership. We don't know that women are actually the makers of all success. When I was growing up, I saw my great-grandmother with her sisters. They were entrepreneurs. They were frying groundnuts, peanuts, one would call them. My grandmother was sewing. My grandmother was selling firewood. She was selling some liquor. People used to come to her house after work and drink and, you know, just relax. My great-grandmother at a point could not see, but she could feel the money. She could feel that you gave her 20 pence and that you didn't give her 50 pence. She could feel it. She could know naturally that it is 5 o'clock because the sun is by her door. She could read things like that. But what I saw the most, I saw the bond between the ladies, between the women. They were powerfully and they were full of energy. They had, you know, they had a sisterhood where they believed in themselves. And they had something that I can see today that made me do the things I do today. They were Christians. They knew how to start their day. They were a form of a ritual. You start your day, you need to push yourself. They were singing in the morning. Because if you don't do that, life will come and just take you away with all the sorrows and all the problems that the life could bring. They didn't have husbands. It is important for me to mention that what I saw when I grew up, I didn't see women with husbands. My grandmother lost her husband very early. So I didn't see men around around the women I grew up with. Only my mother had a husband who was my dad, but I did not see men. I saw women getting up in the morning and finding things to feed us. Then I discovered that there is a 3-dimension woman, a sister, a mother, and a wife. Behind all success, you find this woman. But she cannot be, you know, seen because she's doing these things behind the scene. She's raising her children. She's pushing for them to become the leaders we see. Often president, ministers, doctors, but she's not seen. No one sees her. You know why? Because the means that she uses to feed these people are forgotten. That is the reason why it was important for me to remind the people that Bayam Selam is the way. Some people can't have degrees and, you know, big university education to go to big jobs. And if we know how Africa is, you don't have office for everyone. Most of the time, people are entrepreneurs. And that's what I saw. These ladies were natural entrepreneurs. They were able to give to us through the means of their hands and the little thinking. They went to no school of commerce. They knew nothing about mathematics and everything. That's why you're going to see me. I'm not going to talk to you about figures. I'm going to talk to you about actions. Because when you can't think, you can't count. You cannot understand life. These women could think with their culture, traditions, and values. I discovered that female leadership and personal leadership was two different things. Female leadership demands that you rise when there is nobody. When there are no men, women they must become. That is female leadership that today I'm trying to present to Africa. Personal leadership, anybody can wake up and decide to be something. When I came to London, because I'm Francophone, I could not speak English. It was very important for me to understand that the greatest killer, the greatest demon that can, encage us, that can eat us alive, is lack of education, lack of understanding the purpose, lack of understanding the law of the country, lack of understanding why you are in London and not in Cameroon, in Nigeria, or wherever. I understood something. Reading. If you cannot read, you will be sent a letter. You will not understand what the letter is saying. And sorry for the men here. I'm not trying to be bad to you, but domestic violence happens to women who can't read. Lack of education happens to women who cannot, lack of understanding the law of the country happens to women who doesn't, they have not been to school, they just don't understand. So somebody can steal from them, somebody can abuse them, anything. Then I decided to become a champion of education, adult education. I joined my local borough and I became a community champion because I was trying to understand why we have two categories of people. You have people coming to London, they succeed, and others don't succeed. The only difference is because they can read, they can understand the country, they can go to school, and they can become somebody. I decided to empower these women. The college was free at the time, whether you're a refugee or anything like that. Through that, I became a community champion and I received an award from Princess Anne because Princess Anne is the champion of adult education in the UK. It is important for me to talk about legacy. When we do the work that we do, what are we trying to say? I remember Oprah saying, Maya Angelou said to her, you cannot fathom your legacy. You can never imagine what you're doing. It cannot even come to your mind to understand the work you're doing. Yes, today I can say that. I can say that the things that I've done for some women, because I presented education to them, that is the legacy I will never see. I am sure I've freed some from dying. I've freed some, or I've given a voice to some who could not even speak about what was happening. What I want to talk to you about is disability. My son was born with a congenital disorder of the bowel. He went to theater 26 times. The only thing that saved me was the fact that I could read, I could follow every single letters, and I could decide whether I take this surgery or not. Mothers of disabled children in the UK who cannot speak the language cannot receive the right service. Because when you cannot speak the language and understand the system, you're lacking behind. And obviously, you're falling, you're already broke and poor because you're Black, then things happen to you. Talking about legacy. Am I able to tell people why I went to Africa and I decided? There were a question earlier about brain drain. Why I decided to go and tell African people that you don't need to go and die in the Mediterranean. You feed the world. Food is with you. You are the one who have the real grains, the real crops. What is happening? Why are you leaving that and coming here? I was part of a network marketing, selling fruit and vegetables, and I became the best. Why? Through sorrows, you can rise and become somebody. As a mother of a child born with a disability of the bowel, I knew that if you don't feed your stomach very well, your organ will talk to each other and they will say, oh, listen, she has not given me water, she has not given me vegetable, let's go and strike. Then cancer comes and what have you. Because I knew that, I was able to sell these fruits and vegetables with that argument, saying that your organs talk to each other. Then I became the best. When I discovered that Europeans were drying fruits and vegetables and putting them in capsules and telling somebody that if you take these 30 fruits and vegetables daily, you will be well, you will be healed. I said to myself, what is it that we have in Africa that I can go and present and say, listen, from today, we are not starving anymore. If we can dehydrate our fruits and vegetables, they can have longer life on shelves. That's how I went and created La Grande Rencontre des Artisans d'Afrique et de la Diaspora. Nadine, why do you say it in French? Yes, because colonization has said I should speak French. I should not speak Douala, I should speak French. Colonization has come then and tell me you should speak French and English. Then I will tell you, I then went to Africa and I did the great meetings of artisans from Africa and its diaspora. Nadine, why GRAD? GRAD because we are African and we don't eat our food. Why GRAD? Because we don't know that the baobab powder has 6 times more vitamin C than an orange, than a kiwi. Baobab, the baobab powder. If you take the baobab powder as a juice, after 12 o'clock, you will be awake. You're not going to sleep. Why? Because its vitamin C content is high. I went to Africa and I researched. What is it that we have? Moringa. What is it that we have? Spirulina. What is it that we have? Yam. What is it that we have? We can dehydrate yam and turn it into a porridge and so many other things. I went to Africa to pass a message, which was that if today mangoes are finished in Burkina Faso, because the seasons of mango is now, mangoes are being dehydrated now to last for a whole year. If Benin hasn't got mangoes, Burkina Faso has mangoes. We can interchange products among ourselves. I am not talking to you about the science. I'm not talking to you about the finance. I'm talking to you about the reality of community work. Because I'm a community development practitioner. I am not a financial, I'm not a human geographer. So I can't talk figures to you, but I can talk actions. I can talk what we can do for our children not to go and die in the Mediterranean, for the Mediterranean not to be their cemeteries anymore. I went to Africa. Where in Africa? My colleague said to me, Nadine, you often say you went to Africa. Yes, I say I went to Africa. You know why? Because I crossed 3 borders. Then I didn't go to Benin. Because I went to Benin, I went to Ghana, and I went to Togo. Then I went to Africa. Although we have 54 countries, I cannot say I just went to Benin. No, I went to Africa. When I went to Africa, I gathered the best, people who have the knowledge. Because you know what? Africa is rich, but the knowledge of some activities are not given to everybody. One of our ancestors called Amadou Ampateba said that our knowledge is not written, it's verbal. Gari is a science. The dehydration of a gari is passed from grandmothers to daughters. It's written nowhere. Then I said to myself, we need to document it. We need to document how gari is made. We need to document how this system of dehydration happened. What do we pass to generation and generation? So I did La Grande Rencontre des Artisans d'Afrique et de la Diaspora, 2022. And 2023, I went and I did intergenerational because I wanted the industries who are working around shea butter and pineapple to come and tell young people. In Britain, you hear David and Son, Smith and Sons. In Africa, you don't have that. Papa is an industrial. He does that on his own. Things are changing today. People are bringing their children to this. But before that, you send your children to Europe. They study anything, but they don't study agriculture. They don't study what you are doing. you have a lot of money, you can pay their school fees, but you are not telling them to come and build legacy. You're not telling them that, oh, generational wealth, we can come. And these are the barriers that we, people from the diaspora, should go back to Africa and tell African people that, listen, you cannot die with your knowledge. An old person in Africa is like a library. How are you dying? Why are you dying? With your knowledge. Future, Nadine, why are you here? Why are you invited at this platform? I'm invited here to tell you that looking at the future, I now decided to bring la grande rencontre des artisans d'Afrique et de la diaspora in London, GRAD, the great meeting of artisans from Africa and the diaspora in London. Why, Nadine? Yes, because I want these artisans to meet those of the diaspora for them to be able to collaborate. I quickly discovered when I did the network marketing that you don't need to produce anything. There are three categories of people on this earth. There are producers, there are consumers, and there are distributors. We must be one of them. We cannot spend our life just eating and resting. If you can produce, you can distribute. GRAD is about facilitating distribution of African products. GRAD is about facilitating contact, even just tourism. I said to people that I went to Benin. Benin is one of the ports where many slaves left. Some slaves from 4 to 5 countries left la porte de non-retour at Ouida. Slave from Nigeria, slave from Togo, slave from Ghana, and slave from Benin itself. So when you talk about culture, we are where we are today because we have forgotten our cultures. And I want to bring it back. If we understand how our grandmothers survived, how they sustained themselves without a husband, with no husband. I am not here I have a husband. I have a husband and I cannot do the work I'm doing without my husband. It's important for people to know that. I am not telling women not to be married. No. I am telling people that the women I saw, my grandmother, my great-grandmother and her sisters, they didn't have no husbands, but they fed us every day. I am going to end by telling you that from the 31st to the 2nd of August this year in London, I am building the future. I am bringing artisans in London. I am bringing Africa, the diaspora, together to have the conversation about our means. What do we have in Africa that we can sell in the world? You don't need to make it, but you can distribute it. My name is Nadine Hagen, and it was a great pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. I really love the fact that you've brought the practical approach to life in Africa from a Cameroonian perspective. It's really enlightening. I think we have someone, we're heading into questions now before I bring in Dr. Uche to speak for a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions, the floor is open. Carol? All right, Carol is a bit shy, I believe. So I will ask a question. So Nadine, your childhood experiences in Douala and your grandmother's entrepreneurial spirit clearly shaped your journey. How have those early memories influenced your vision for promoting African artisanship and female leadership today?
Thank you, David. This is the proof of the fact that I did not dwell in my memories. I made sure to document it. In this book called Bayam Salam is the Way, I have the images of the women that I saw, those who were selling from their home and those who were selling in the street, in the burning sun of Africa. Getting up in the morning with no hope whatsoever if they will bring something home, but with the burning desire of changing their lives and the lives of their children. My grandmother went to no school of commerce, but she knew one thing. She had to write her transactions. That's If I learned nothing from my grandmother, I learned that if you sell something, or if somebody came to you to order something or buy something, you must write it down. Your question is loaded. Your question is long. If I sit here, it's a whole dissertation. But I'm inviting people to read my book because it is important to see that if I can read a little bit, maybe that could help, David, just this. In the vibrant heart of Africa, where the marker pulses with a rich tapestry of stories, dreams, and relentless toil, lies a science that is as old, is ancient, is resilient. That science is called Bayam Selam. This is what I got from my grandmother. My grandmother taught me that if you don't sell nothing, you are going to starve. And that's my message today. As simple as that. You need to sell something. You don't need to produce it. You can take it somewhere and sell it. And today, African people are producing things. It is our time to go there and collect these things and come and sell it in the diaspora. That's my message. And that's what I learned from my grandmother.
Yep, I totally agree. You know, we all should be salespeople of one type or another. And that is the way of the world. If you want to survive, you have to have some product or service to sell. Great. So I'll bring in Dr. Uche Igwe, who is one of our esteemed presenters, to give us a perspective from where he is as a Nigerian academic and scholar. Dr. Igwe, the floor is yours. He's probably engaged in some of the academic pursuit at the moment. So what we will do then is we'll open the floor for further questions, and then we will wrap up and move on to other things. So the floor is open. Anyone has any questions?
Yes, this is Carol. I couldn't find the mic, sorry, before.
Okay.
I was just...
Hello, David.
Oh,
hi, Dr.
Anyway,
Uche.
yes, let's take Carol's question and I would say a few things.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
was actually, I work with disabled students, so the point where you were talking about people not being able to read, so they were unable to get the right diagnosis, make the right choices for what care can be given to their children. Is there something that you are doing or something that you feel that needs to be done to help mothers, parents be able to get the right care for their disabled family members?
Thank you, Carol. I love that. A few years ago, I had a CIC where I was supporting French-speaking mothers with their applications, but also the understanding of the system. Today, I work in a college. I work in a college in Poplar. And one of the activities that I started with the college is to invite parents, engage parents to kind of understand the needs of their children. You know, it's very difficult to care for a disabled child. And these parents, they are sometimes drowned in sorrows instead of looking at the needs of their children. And also the fact of denial. Sometimes we don't accept the disability, and that's a barrier. And this goes across, whether you're Black or Asian, you know, we all deny what is happening, and you know, we either pray or we either cast the child away instead of understanding that this is a unique human being that, you know, lives in the society that provide these things. Special needs services have really changed from 20 years ago. There's a lot of there's a lot of development. There's assistive technology. There's so much. You know, our children don't need to be, you know, neglected. You know, at the moment, if the parents are informed, if the parent can be advocates, or if they can seek advocacy in the community, their children could be better. So we, I would call it like that, we, the Black and any minority, must have services to boost the life of our children who are from the Black and any minority, or approach colleges and raise a form of a project to be able to make parents understand that, look, this is here, let's do something about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm a send as well to just let you know. I'm a PMLD specialist, but I moved to mainstream now, working with, you know, boys doing triple science, IT, health and social care and things like that. But originally I'm a PMLD. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Very good advice. I hope that answered your question, Carol.
Yes, it did.
Good. Fantastic. Okay, Dr. Uche, we will hear from you now.
Yes, thank you very much. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I listened to the two speakers, very fantastic and very connected speeches. I am excited about the first and indeed the second speaker, who is actually the wife of my friend. Nadine Hagen is my friend's wife. It's a small world.
Okay.
Morten is a very good friend of mine. And I think that in thinking about culture, I think that the role of Nollywood, and you did speak to Nollywood, and I think that the essence of the conversation the first speaker led sort of brings us to the interesting realization of what we have to contribute. Often the table of global conversations and global negotiations, we tend to always think about receiving, and we don't think critically about what we contribute on the table. And that sort of weakens our negotiation power, and across board in all conversations. And I think that very interesting thing that I got from what the first speaker did talk about is for us to understand the quantity and the quantum nature of our contribution in terms of culture and creativity, and how it can be monetized in terms of monetary value. In the last 2 years in Nigeria, there's been an effort to sort of formalize cultural related issues into what we now have as the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy. So there's been a lot of efforts to organize what used to be, you know, in the past informal, and sort of see how we can make it more systematic and make it a much more interesting source of revenue generation. And I said this because between us, Africa and Caribbean, that could be an important form of collaboration and cooperation. And I think that it could be an important part of what we take forward, not only in this webinar, and also in the conference that we expect to have in the coming months. So I think this is very exciting, especially coming from Nigeria, where Nollywood is growing by the day, and there has not been a very systematic, data-driven approach to even monitor the amount of jobs it creates and it can create, and the amount of resources it could generate, and the amount of exchange that and collaboration and cooperation that could possibly happen through it. And that's about that for the first speaker. And the second speaker, I am excited about the kind of possibilities and inspiration really that can be generated from what Nadine said, and all the possibilities. And as someone who lives or lived in the UK, depending on who is describing, I think that the kind of message contained in what she has said is something that needs to be amplified, and to get people to connect to their home countries and home continent and understand the opportunities that could exist in the kind of thing that Nadine is suggesting. For Nigeria, for instance, there's got a lot of people who are both out there in the diaspora and even aspiring to be here, and again, who are also vast in the production of food and some of the things that those in diaspora really need. I think that there are a lot of opportunities that can be explored, and I'm just wondering what sort of role ACSIS could play in encouraging those exchanges to happen, using our position as those who live in diaspora and connecting not only to Africa and also to the Caribbean. So that's all I can say. And I think that it is a time for us to tap into these suggestions and these possibilities and see how we can take them a little further in terms of getting sessions into a conference and how we can translate them into real action or actions, as Nadine said, and also generating real resources in terms of revenue and employment opportunities, for instance, as the first speaker said. I rest it for now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Uche Igwe, for the insightful contribution that you've made. And I think I have to address your question about how ACSIS will play a role in the facilitation of the exchange of goods and services between Africa and the Caribbean. We are in a very, I'd say, fortunate position, as we have recently ratified a deal with the UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce that is focused on getting us to initiate matchmaking between Ghanaian companies and Caribbean companies that are interested in exchanges of goods and services. We are working really hard on identifying companies in Ghana that have a certain product offering that will be of interest to their counterparts in the Caribbean who want those products and services, and vice versa. We're also working with an entity in Nigeria to do likewise. So there is a project in place for us to actualize, the possibility of having the diaspora be involved in trade between Africa and the Caribbean, because we do recognize that there's a lot of value on both sides that has not been capitalized upon, for the want of a better word, in many years. So we, as the diaspora representative, we're playing our part in ensuring that this happens. So it was really good to hear what Michael Burgess was saying about the value of the cultural experience in Africa, looking at the amount of monies and revenues that have been made from the arts, from fashion, and so on. It's extremely useful to know that there is hope for what's known as the Black continent. And Nadine, of course, spoke eloquently about her experiences stemming from what she learned from her grandmother and what she has contained in her book about how it is women can overcome adversity in their communities. And I'm quite pleased to know that she is a champion for women and in leadership. So we've learned quite a lot today, and I'm quite happy that we were able to put together this webinar to bring these ideas together for our mutual benefit. So on that note, I think we will close at this point. So I have some announcements to make. The ACSIS World Reparations Conference at the House of Lords will be held on the 25th of September. The ACSIS Summit, which many of you are aware of is happening on the 21st to the 22nd of November at Queen's Gatehouse in South Kensington. And lastly, the next webinar in this series will be the FinTech and Cybersecurity Part 2. That will be held on the 7th of August, 2025. So I thank you all for your contributions. I thank the speakers, Nadine and Michael, taking the time to be with us today, and also for the contributions made by the members of the audience who asked pointed questions. So thank you very much. And
David, I know you're closing. I would like to invite people who are here at the fair and the conference starting next Thursday. We're going to have plenty of nice African things. You know, the artisans are coming from Tuesday. So please, if you live in London, come and visit us. And if you live in the UK for that matter, travel and come. And you share, if you're here, come. We miss you. We have not seen you for a while. Please come and be with us. Thank you so much.
Tell us a little more about it. We have 5 minutes. Tell us a little more about it.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are starting on the 31st. It's a 3-day fair plus a gala at the end of it, because we want to reward these Africans who have worked so hard. It was important for me to do Africa and diaspora because there are people in the diaspora who are distributing product from Africa. So we have these 2 people. We have guests from France, Germany, America, Canada, and we have 3 countries, powerful countries that are coming. When you understand what is made in Africa, Burkina Faso, they are champions. So if you have the capacity.
Oh, we lost her. Oh dear. I think she got disconnected. All right.
Thank you so much. I have a call that came. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, oh my God. Are you hearing me at all?
Yeah, we can hear and see you. You're fine. Well, you were fine.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had a call. I had a call that came in. So I'm looking forward to seeing you for this 3-day. If you know people who have businesses in Africa, in London, I'm looking for face painting for the children. This is the holiday. If you know people, it costs £46 a day to be there. So it costs £140 for 3 days. We have a gala with a fantastic meal from Africa and nice champagne from France, because I'm Francophone. So if you like to come to the gala as well, please just maybe go through David to get my number. Otherwise, you can get my number as well, which is 078-4695-3171. For the beginning of the conference, that is the 31st, we are celebrating the African Women's Day. People are not aware of this day for women. People think that everybody is celebrating the 8th of March. But our Keita, an African politician from Mali, fought by Sekou Touré to give us African women a date, that is the 31st of July. So on the 31st of July, we are celebrating all African women. If you're a Black woman from Africa here, or from the Caribbean, we are celebrating you on the 31st of July. Please get in touch with me. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I hope we get some contributors coming to support what you're doing. So with no further ado, I'd like to thank you all for your contributions and participation. And I will see you next on Thursday, August 7th, when we speak about the FinTech and Cybersecurity Part 2.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.